These 8 footballers had their genius systematically destroyed by their own managers. The real reason their careers derailed is a secret the football world tries to hide. What one manager did to a World Cup winner is absolutely unforgivable. You must stick around until the end to discover the full, shocking truth behind these football tragedies. Di Maria once arrived at Manchester United not just as another signing, but as an embodiment of a statement. A record-breaking transfer that carried with it the weight of Old Trafford's fading empire. He had just orchestrated brilliance at Real Madrid, twisting defenders into knots, dazzling with his unpredictable bursts of creativity. The type of winger who could turn the rhythm of a game with a single sprint or an audacious pass. Yet when Louis van Gaal imposed his rigid 3-5-2 system, Di Maria's artistry was chained. Instead of roaming free on the flanks, where surging runs carved open defenses, he was shunted into central zones, made to adhere to a structure that suffocated his instincts. The player who once lit up Bernabeu now wandered aimlessly in the red of United, stripped his essence by a manager who could not understand his fire. It was not that Di Maria had lost his brilliance. It was that the canvas he was given no longer allowed him to paint. The stadium that should have roared in awe instead watched him fade into shadows until his departure became not a shock, but an inevitability, a scar on both player and club. Years later, Jack Grealish would find himself under a different kind of stranglehold. He had left Aston Villa as a sorcerer, a man whose dribbles carried the weight of entire crowds, whose every touch whispered that something magical was about to happen. Villa's rhythm pulsed through him, every harm bending to his will. But at Manchester City, under Pep Guardiola, the fire was doused. The Spaniard had praised him for his ability to control tempo, yet paradoxically stripped him of the very qualities that defined him. No longer free to glide inside, to dribble defenders with unpredictability. He was reduced to a cog in a ruthless machine, instructed to recycle possession and stand in position, as if the artistry that once enchanted Birmingham had no place in Guardiola's symphony. Even statistics betrayed the decline. Months without goals, assists evaporating, a player known for chaos reduced to predictability. And when the shackles loosened during a loan at Everton, the old Grealish flickered back to life, a reminder that talent does not vanish. It suffocates when imprisoned by systems blind to individuality. If Grealish's tale was one of suffocated expression, Gabriel Martinelli's decline at Arsenal reflected the dangers of over-instruction. Bursting into prominence with blistering runs and sharp goals, he looked destined to become a fixture of Premier League terror. Yet as Mikel Arteta's tactical grid tightened, Martinelli's natural chaos was disciplined out of him. Where once he attacked with fearless abandon, now he hesitated, caught between instinct and instruction. The numbers told the truth. Goals fell, creativity shrank, his attacking instincts blunted by layers of rehearsed patterns. His greatest flaw, decision-making with his head down, remained unsolved, but instead of guidance, he was loaded with tactical commands that only magnified the weakness. New signings piled on pressure, and the once rising star became a symbol of how coaching can sometimes smother rather than sharpen. The Emirates, which once rose to its feet at his every sprint, began to sigh, recognizing that a flame had been dimmed not by defenders, but by doctrine. In West Ham's corridors, Mohamed Kudus discovered another type of maltreatment. Not statistical decline, but a raw clash of wills. Under David Moyes, he had danced freely, carrying the ball with flair, a wild card who could tear through defenses. But Julian Lopeteguy's approach was a cage. Structured patterns, controlled movements, tactical discipline that ignored Kudus' essence as an improviser. The Ghanaian's frustration boiled to such intensity that training sessions nearly exploded into confrontation, teammates stepping in to separate fury from authority. When Lopetegui substituted him at halftime during a bruising draw, the humiliation was complete. Kudus no longer saw himself as a player trusted to create. He was a pawn commanded to conform, and when he left for Tottenham, it was less a transfer than an escape, a liberation from a system that had tried to erase what made him unique. Mario Götze's story began with the highest of highs, scoring Germany's winning goal in the 2014 World Cup final. His name etched into eternity. When Pep Guardiola welcomed him to Bayern Munich, the world believed greatness was about to be magnified. Instead, it was diluted. Guardiola, ever the tinkerer, reshaped him endlessly. Winger one day, False nine another, central midfielder when the game demanded. The constant positional shifts denied him rhythm, denied him identity. For a player whose brilliance lay in instinctive creativity, this overcoaching became poison. Despite flashes of goals, Götze admitted later that he regretted the move, that the fit was wrong from the start. His confidence withered, his promise faded. And when he returned to Borussia Dortmund, it was as if he was seeking sanctuary in a place where his football was once understood. Bayern's dominance rolled on, but the young man who should have grown into a legend had instead become another example of talent reshaped until it broke. Di Maria, Jack Grealish, Gabriel Martinelli, Mohamed Kudus, Mario Götze, different players, different leagues, but bound by the same invisible thread. Managers who saw them not as artists, but as instruments to bend to tactical scores. Yet the tale does not end there. At Chelsea, Timo Werner carried with him the reputation of one of Europe's deadliest forwards, a predator who thrived on space, who timed his runs like a hunter stalking prey. In Leipzig, defenses collapsed in panic at his acceleration. But in London, under Frank Lampard and Thomas Tuchel, the system was possession-heavy. The spaces he needed squeezed into nothing. He ran, he stretched, but the ball never arrived in the way he knew. Instead of goals, there were memes, chances ballooned into the stands, confidence bleeding away. By the time he returned to Leipzig, the sparkle was gone, a striker broken by a league and system that asked him to be something he was not. Kai Havertz, another German prodigy, experienced a similar identity crisis at Chelsea. At Bayer Leverkusen, he was elegance personified, gliding between lines, ghosting into spaces defenders could not track. But at Stamford Bridge, his role was never clear. Was he a midfielder, a false nine, a second striker? Managers shuffled him endlessly, each role half-fitting, but none fully his. Even Frank Lampard admitted that no one truly knew where his best position was. The uncertainty drained him, his promise fading into inconsistency. Only when he crossed London to Arsenal did the fog lift, deployed decisively as a center forward, finally given a frame where his abilities could breathe. It was a reminder that sometimes talent does not need reinvention, only clarity. And then there was Alexis Sanchez, whose decline at Manchester United under Mourinho encapsulated the tragedy of tactical rigidity. At Arsenal, Sanchez was chaos incarnate, pressing relentlessly, creating with abandon, a spark plug that ignited entire games. But Mourinho demanded discipline, demanded a structure that curbed freedom. The Chilean who once played as if possessed by fire now looked subdued, wandering, stripped of joy. Confidence evaporated. Performances grew erratic, and what was once considered a coup signing became a cautionary tale. In interviews, Sanchez admitted regret, a rare confession that revealed just how deeply the misfit had scarred him. Fans who once adored his ferocity now watched in dismay as he withered under instructions that did not belong to him. Together, these stories form a mosaic of wasted potential. Not wasted because the players lacked quality, but because their uniqueness was misunderstood. Di Maria was not built to be an interior cog. Jack Grealish was not designed to recycle possession. Gabriel Martinelli was not born to hesitate. Mohamed Kudus was not created to be restrained. Mario Götze was not destined to be endlessly reshuffled. Timo Werner was not meant to play without space. Kai Havertz was not a puzzle without a solution. And Alexis Sanchez was not a soldier in a defensive regiment. They were artists, each in their own way, and what they needed were managers who could recognize their artistry and build around it. Instead, they were contorted into systems that prize control over creativity, rigidity over expression. The lessons stretch far beyond these individuals. Football is not mathematics alone. It is emotion, instinct, spontaneity. The greatest managers in history, those who etched dynasties, were not those who merely imposed systems, but those who recognized when to bend them, when to allow a player's brilliance to breathe. Sir Alex Ferguson gave Eric Cantona freedom. Arsene Wenger built Arsenal around Thierry Henry's instincts. Jurgen Klopp unleashed Mohamed Salah, rather than restraining him. The contrast is stark. Nurture and brilliance flourishes, suffocate and brilliance dies. What is most striking about these 8 tales is not just the personal tragedy, but the universality of the theme. In workplaces, in schools, and societies, how often are unique talents forced into molds that do not fit? How often is individuality mistaken for rebellion, creativity mistaken for indiscipline. The football pitch merely magnifies the human struggle, showing us in 90 minutes the cost of misunderstanding what makes people special. Which of these players do you think suffered the most from being forced into the wrong system? Whose story shocked you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments and let's debate. And if you want more hidden football stories that no one dares to tell, make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss what comes next.